Live on the TuneIn Radio app from Studio 8H in Chicago at the Museum of Broadcast Communications, this is the 2017 National Radio Hall of Fame induction ceremony. That's right. Sponsored by the Mix Group, I'm Jim Bohannon, and tonight the National Radio Hall of Fame inducts 8 highly respected broadcasters. From Los Angeles, we have Bill Handel. Intercom founder Joe Field. Chicago's John Records Landecker. Longtime Fort Wayne legend Bob Sievers. Minnesota Morning Drive powerhouse Tom Barnard. And Nashville's Bobby Jones. All right, in addition to the Sievers and Boneses and all the rest of those folks, also appearing tonight will be Chicago media star Bob Surratt. Intercom's David Field, iHeartRadio's Greg Ashlock and Rod Phillis, and Scott Jameson of Cumulus. And now it's time to welcome tonight's host. He is America's trusted money man, the voice on money and business, the host of The Dave Ramsey Show, heard on 595 radio stations nationwide. Recognized as one of the top 10 podcasts in the nation, and a man honored to speak to a weekly audience of more than 13 million listeners. Please welcome National Radio Hall of Famer, Dave Ramsey.
Hey! How are you guys doing tonight? Welcome to the 29th annual induction ceremony for the National Radio Hall of Fame. We're so honored to have you with us tonight. We have an incredible group of inductees. These men and women are absolutely amazingly talented and persistent and consistent in the business. And in this business, being persistent and consistent is fairly rare. But I'm in here, man, all the cool people are in here. It kind of is a little bit scary. I mean, I got the Cumulus people over here. Mike McVeigh sitting here. Oh my gosh. Craig Kitchen's in here. Did y'all see him? I mean, the Premier people are here. The iHeart people are here. The Intercom people are here. Man, it's like all the important people. I feel like a wiener in a steakhouse, you guys. Completely out of place. We're honored to be with you tonight. I got to tell you, we added up and did a little bit of research. It looks like that the inductees tonight have done somewhere around 200 and a little over 200,000 hours of radio among them. So our business is a wonderful, wonderful business. We have the duty and the privilege of entering the theater of the mind with people. We get to, some of you are in the music side of the world. My friend Bobby Bones here tonight, one of the inductees in the music side of the world. Those of us that can't sing, we ride along and sing along in our cars where no one can hear us. And the soundtrack of our lives comes from radio. And the DJs and the personalities that bring us that in the morning drive, afternoon drive, or whenever we get into our car, they're really become part of our family. The theater of the mind, radio is just fun. It's an intimate medium because you can hear a pause on my show when someone's calling in and, they're lying. We can tell. You can tell what's going on. You can tell they just made that crap up right there in front of 14 million people. And then sometimes they should have made it up, but they actually say things they should never say in front of anyone, but they do it on radio because it's an intimate medium. They trust us. They come to us for entertainment. They come to us for motivation. They come to us for inspiration. They come to us to get new thoughts and new ways of looking at things. And sometimes they come to us for a good laugh. Around our place, we've had a few good laughs over the years and pretty serious stuff. Back in the day when Janet Jackson had her thing on the Super Bowl, and we weren't running a delay. And FCC kind of came around and said, we're going to tag you guys $500,000 if somebody drops an F-bomb on your little network. And I thought, well, that would pretty well do away with our little network. And so we put in a delay. Well, we didn't need a delay. We weren't doing hot talk or we weren't doing anything that spicy. People weren't really carrying on. And so it wasn't that big a deal, we didn't think, but we put in a delay. Sure enough, the next week, guy calls me and he says, country boy from down in Alabama, Dave, Hey, my wife won't have sex with me if I don't make at least $650 a month. What do you think about that, Dave Ramsey? I said, well, I think I'd get to work. He started cussing and screaming and saying things you can't say on the radio, and so we got to use our dump button for the very first time. It's a lot of fun. We used to do an hour occasionally on the radio show where we would do what we call stupid tax hour, where people would call in and tell something stupid they had done with money, and to entertain the rest of us, because we've all done something stupid with money. And when you do something stupid with money and you lose it, we call that stupid tax. One of my favorites was the guy called in and he said, Dave, I got a real problem. He said, I paid for my wife's breast implants on my credit card. And I said, so what's the problem? He said, well, I came home from work and caught her in bed with my boss. So I drug him out in the front yard and beat hell out of him. So I got arrested. I lost my job. I got a divorce. I still got the credit card debt, and I still hadn't touched those things. You can't make this up. It only happens in radio. Only happens in radio. So we're glad to be here tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got a lot of things to cover tonight. The impact of radio is really, really real. It's a good time in this business where people are starting to understand that this business is both art and science. There are people that have always wanted this to just be a business, and there are people that have always just wanted this to be art. And it is this wonderful thing when those two things get together that we have successful people like are being inducted tonight. I had a leader of one of the larger groups one time tell me that he owned all the distribution, and I needed to get in line with his thing. And I told him, I said, well, distribution's really important, and we'd love to be on a bunch of your radio stations, but if you've got crap and you well distribute it, all you have is well distributed crap. So you need some art in there. You need some actual talent on the air. And if all you've got is talent on the air and you don't understand there's a business side of this equation, that actual bills have to be paid, payroll has to be met, advertisers have to be kept happy, then you're a starving artist, and you're not going to make it in the business either. Those of us that have been doing this a while, we figured out that it is a beautiful dance between the two, between art and science, business and talent. And we get to celebrate that in here tonight. It's a good time in this business, a good time in this business. Men like Bruce DeMont. Bruce, thank you so much, my friend. He took charge of this National Radio Hall of Fame back in 1991 when it was moved to Chicago. And of course, Bruce told this group earlier before we went live on TuneIn that Craig Kitchen came in, my friend, and he's the chairman now since 2014. And if this goes badly with me emceeing tonight, you can blame him. But I get to hang out with my friend Jim Bohannon tonight. Jim and I have known each other a long time. Jim is an icon in this business. He's the announcer voice for this evening and always is. And oddly enough, this is the first time he and I have ever gotten to work together, so I'm really glad to do that. And on this iconic Saturday Night Live set here with the Studio 8H. Our first inductee of the evening is another icon. I'm going to use that word a lot tonight, but it's true because we are sitting in the midst of greatness tonight. This guy I have admired as a fellow broadcaster for years, and I've admired his tenacity and his success, and does a great, great show. Our first inductee is Bill Handel. He's as you guys know, he's on KFI AM over in Los Angeles and has been the morning host there since 1993. He's nationally syndicated on about 330 radio stations, which is no small task with his show, Handel and the Law. And introducing Bill tonight is the market president of iHeartMedia, Los Angeles and Southwest, Kevin Legret. Please give him a round of applause, please. Thank you, brother.
So first and foremost, I'm not Greg Ashlock. I'm about 5 inches taller and a lot darker. So it's important to note that 24 hours ago, I thought I was coming here to celebrate my friend Bill Handel and my friend Bobby Bones, and then I found out that I'm going to be speaking. And I've got a big screen next to me. So I'm here primarily to talk about Bill Handel and how great it's been the last 3 years working with Bill. Bill's career can be broken up into 2 phases. First, the phase when he didn't take meds, and the second is when he did take meds. I'm very fortunate for the last 3 years that I've experienced him taking meds, and we haven't gotten into a lot of trouble, so thank you, Bill, for being diligent on that. Bill is our cornerstone on KFI. He does a tremendous job, but I would be remiss if I didn't spend just 30 seconds talking about the fact that the people behind him do a tremendous job. His producer, Michelle Cube, has been with him for years, does a tremendous job. She's here tonight. In addition, program director Robin Berlucci, who is a rock, does a phenomenal job. And it's always fun when I walk down the hallway and I see Bill in Robin's office, and I see him just kind of sitting there arguing and then agreeing with Robin. It's a precious moment. But Bill is one of those unique broadcasters who, quite frankly, in my opinion, is one of the greatest storytellers I've ever listened to. I have the pleasure of listening to him almost every morning. And one of the things he does is bring real life and being authentic with everything that he's talking about. And the great thing about Bill, if you didn't know this, he grew up speaking Portuguese. You know, English isn't his first language. And he spent a lot of time working through it, but there are several times during his show where I wonder what exactly he is saying. I feel like he's remiss back to his Portuguese days, but we work through that. But Bill has been able to evolve over time by being a great storyteller, but more importantly, by letting his true side come out. I think 9/11 was really a pinnacle moment for him. I was not part of the radio station at that time, but I've heard tape and I've heard different stories about that was really the moment in time where Bill let himself really come out. He let himself show how much he cared about his community, he cared about his country, he cared about his family, and of course he cared about himself. That's always first and foremost. But Bill, you've been a great friend of mine for 3 years. You've actually helped me tremendously in Los Angeles. I appreciate this. This honor is all yours tonight. And the team has put together a great video for you.
They wanted a bio of me, and who better to do a bio of me than me? I was born in Brazil. Mesmo, nasci em São Paulo. And I came to the United States at the age of 5, legal. World-class education. Went to CSUN and the now defunct Whittier Law School. I started practicing law in 1979 and had the chance to develop a whole new branch of law, surrogacy and third-party reproduction. I know that sounds super important, but bottom line, I just sell babies. That led to national, international news appearances around the surrogacy issue. Nightline 2020, The Today Show, 60 Minutes, and from there, Handel on the Law was born in 1985. I came to KFI with Handel on the Law in 1989. I was so honored to be able to autograph photos for my fans. The first one I autographed was to myself. And then I went from weekends to nights and then right into AM Drive. Along the way, I've gotten a few awards. And after doing mornings and Handel on the Law for a couple of decades now, I realized this was my thing when I put down talk show host instead of attorney on a customs form in 2003. So I think this is going to stick.
I don't know if by affirmative action I got mine before you got yours, you know what I'm saying? But Lord knows you're more than worthy. And thank you so much for helping me push my car when I ran out of gas. If Martin Luther King could see a black man sitting in his car with his Caucasian brother pushing it, we have arrived.
People think I'm crazy for working with Bill Handel, but you know what? He's even crazier. He's nuts.
Look into your eyes, it's like watching the night sky or a beautiful sunrise. Oh, there's so much they hold, and just like them old stars. I see that you've come so far.
Congratulations, Bill, on receiving this incredible honor. As part of the iHeartMedia family, we celebrate right along with you.
Certainly all your hard work has paid off.
You connect with listeners in a way very few people ever do. We're very proud of you here.
Bill Handel.
Bam!
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming my friend Bill Handel to the National Radio Hall of Fame.
Wow. You know, the ovation started over here, and then you obligatorily decided to stand up. Thank you. And by the way, every word that you heard of what Kevin said and on the video, absolutely true. I mean, every word. That's why I was roaring over here. Obviously, this is an enormous honor. I mean, this is it in the world of radio. And anybody who's been behind the mic for any length of time, you get a lot of awards. It just comes with the territory. And I've received my share. And frankly, do they mean, well, the Nobel Peace Prize wasn't too bad. But this one really means all of it. I mean, this is it's a National Radio Hall of Fame. What do you do with that? Other than say, okay, and humbly accept, which I've never been humble in my entire life. I wouldn't even know that if it kicked me in the ass. So you know how people stand up and they thank people in their lives and how you absolutely hate it, can't take it? Well, sit back for a moment. Robin Bertolucci, my program director, and if it weren't for Robin, I wouldn't be standing here today. Probably would have about 5 years ago. Michelle Cube, my producer, 23 years. She tells me what to do. Tim, her husband, my best friend, Saville, and my other best friend, Saville's my partner. My other best friend is Karen, my partner. Neil Saavedra, who I work with, and my best friend at the radio. John Thomas is here. Pardon? Who did I miss? Nobody. Well, that comes last. I'm not going to forget. My daughters obviously are here because I paid for the tickets. My goddaughter, and last but certainly not least, my wife Marjorie, who for the last 30 years, I had a television show, the worst TV show in the history of mankind. It really should have been called The Shit Show. It was that bad. And I said, okay, I'm on TV, I'm going to do it. Marjorie said, don't you ever give up radio. Don't you ever give up radio, because that's the heart and soul of what you want to do. And, you know, boy, I'm glad I listened to her. And, you know, what can I say? I think Dave said it best when it comes to what radio is about. It is, I love talking to people, and people, oh, you got 1 million people out there. No, I don't. I have one person I'm talking to just 1 million times. And you can't do that on TV. You can't do that in any other medium. You can't wear shorts on TV and show up in your underwear. And you can on radio. It's truly a magic medium. And I am honored, beyond honored, to accept the award. Marjorie, thank you for your wonderful sage advice. And thank you for being there for 30 years. And it's a community property state, so what do you care? Anyway, thanks very much. And thanks, Kevin.
Congratulations, Bill. Proud of you, brother. Oh, that's fabulous. Well done, Bill. We're proud of you, man. Very well done. Second inductee, I particularly, all of these are special and for different reasons, but this guy's an absolute legend in the industry, and most of you know that we own our show and self-syndicated, and at 596 stations, we scratched and clawed for every one of those. We've got about 600 54 people on the payroll this week on our team, the various endeavors that our company does, and so I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a CEO of an organization, and so I really admire people who grow something. And Joe Field founded Intercom Communications in 1968 with stations in San Francisco and Houston and Minneapolis, and to say that he's grown Intercom would be an understatement. Absolutely amazing stuff. And right here on the eve of one of the largest radio mergers in history with CBS Radio, they've built Intercom now into what will soon be the second largest and arguably one of the strongest radio groups in the nation. No doubt about it. And so Joe is an entrepreneurial legend and certainly a radio legend. And I have the blessing in my life of having some of my grown children, which is kind of an oxymoron, working on our team and seeing the next generation come into the Ramsey Solutions process, not only in the spotlight, but also learning business and entrepreneurism. And certainly Joe's son, David, has been an able hand at the reins at Intercom and has been the one jumping through these DOJ hoops and so forth lately for a closing that's going to occur in the next couple of weeks. So it's more than apropos that Joe Field is going to be inducted tonight into the National Radio Hall of Fame by the president and CEO of Intercom, Joe's son, David Field. Welcome in, please. Thank you, brother.
Oh, good evening. It's great to be here up against some pretty star-studded, entertaining folks. And I'm going to take us down a notch a little bit here. And it is truly a pleasure to be here doing something which not everybody gets to do in their life, which is to induct their dad into a Hall of Fame. And tonight we celebrate 8 extraordinary broadcasters, each of whom has made a profoundly meaningful impact on the medium that we all love. And I want to congratulate all of tonight's recipients. I'm pretty sure that the inductees would find a few things that they might disagree on, but how wonderful that we live in a country where we are all free to express our views publicly and enjoy the liberties that our founders established and that so many Americans have fought to preserve on the battlefields, in the courts of law, and within the forums of public discourse over the course of the nation's 241-year history. If anyone doubts the power of radio, look around the room tonight. The power of a Tom Bernard, Bobby Bones, Bill Handel, a Sean Hannity, John Lendecker, Robin Quivers, and Bob Severs. We have an enormously powerful bully pulpit, which truly does change the world. And from our profound impact on politics and public policy to the more mundane but enormously important one-on-one relationships between radio personalities and the hundreds of millions of Americans with whom they share a deep sense of connection. With that power, though, comes the sacred responsibility to act in the great tradition of accurate and responsible journalism that enables our nation to debate the facts and the issues earnestly on their merits and not succumb to erroneous or misleading political rhetoric on both ends of the political spectrum. And I think it's just a really important thing to remind ourselves in this time we're living in and the role we play in this society, which is so incredibly important. But I want to focus my brief remarks tonight on my dad. When Joe founded Intercom 49 years ago, he was a young lawyer with no business or broadcasting experience. But he had a prescient vision about the transcendent potential of FM radio, plus a brilliant mind, tireless energy, and an indomitable will. And he overcame all the challenges he confronted and succeeded. Joe loves to dive deeply into big problems and find solutions. During the company's earliest years, he successfully tackled a number of potentially existential threats to Intercom, navigating the challenges of leading a startup company with an emerging technology against far stronger competitors. Nothing motivated Joe more than a seemingly impossible situation, where even his most ardent supporters would gently advise him to throw in the towel. Not Joe. That's when he is at his best. Joe has an unrivaled tenacity and willpower, single-mindedly focused on attacking the problem from every conceivable angle for days or even weeks until he finds a solution. Joe made a big contribution to
the future of the industry as an early leader on digital broadcasting. As an NAB board member, he championed the in-band on-channel solution that became the industry standard and led to today's HD broadcasting system. But more important than his professional achievements, what I most admire about my dad is who he is as a human being. A selfless, principled, and unpretentious man of great virtue and integrity whose philanthropy has made an enormous difference in so many lives. Joe Field stands as a model of honesty and decency, and his values and principles set a standard at Entercom which we have strived to uphold throughout our entire history. Working together with my dad has been extraordinarily fulfilling and rewarding. One of the best decisions I ever made in my life was leaving Goldman Sachs and a career in investment banking to join Entercom in 1987 and work with Joe to take Entercom to the next level. It has been an amazing ride. Today, Entercom stands on the verge of a game-changing merger with CBS Radio that will make Entercom Radio's second largest company, #1 in news and sports, and the #1 creator of original local audio content in the United States. Entercom has come a long way since the day Joe founded the company in 1968. I could not be happier for him this evening as he receives this well-earned honor, joining Radio Hall of Fame.
Joseph Field practiced law for 13 years in New York and Philadelphia before discovering the magic of our medium. He became interested in radio while helping a client acquire WPEN AM and FM in Philadelphia in 1967. The major issue at hand was the valuation. The AM was valued at $5 million, while the FM was valued at just $500,000. He saw an opportunity before others did. A year later, Joe Field founded Entercom, acquiring FM stations in San Francisco, Houston, and Minneapolis. He served as chairman and CEO for 34 years, taking Entercom public in 1999 and acquiring 101 stations in 19 markets. He saw the opportunities presented with duopoly and HD radio and led the industry by embracing new laws and new technology with great results. Joe Field found the most qualified CEO to succeed him in 2002 in his son, David, who had joined the company after a successful career of his own in the financial markets. While staying on as chairman of Entercom, Joe has worked with David and a renowned management team since the early 2000s, as Entercom has expanded their presence to 28 markets and 128 stations. Later this month, it's anticipated that Entercom will grow again with the acquisition of CBS Radio. Entercom will arrive at being the second largest radio broadcasting company with 230 stations in 47 markets, including 23 of the top 25 market. A 50-year career in radio broadcasting, Joseph Field, inductee in 2017 into the National Radio Hall of Fame.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor to induct Joe Field, my dad, into the National Radio Hall of Fame. After that introduction, I have to pinch myself to see if I'm still alive. My thanks to the National Radio Hall of Fame and the Museum of Broadcast Communications for this great honor being bestowed upon me this evening. It is truly a humbling experience to stand here in the midst of all the National Radio Hall of Fame recipients who have been given that honor in the past and those who are being honored here today. When I formed Entercom almost 50 years ago, on the conviction that independent FM could survive in an AM-dominant industry and in time could challenge AM stations for leadership in audiences and advertising, I could never have dreamed of anything like this. I know that I would not be receiving this honor tonight without David's extraordinary record. His accomplishments
after following me as CEO of Entercom include as being a very successful broadcaster, a very important industry leader, one who has brought Entercom to the verge of becoming, as you've heard, the nation's second largest radio broadcast company. It speaks volumes for itself. And it's especially pleasing for me that David is presenting this award to me, since David seems so well qualified to receive it for himself. Thank you, David, for all of your assistance, without which this evening would not be possible. And to have it happen on the heels of the Department of Justice approving the merger between Entercom and CBS Radio is beyond belief. I would also not be here without the loving support of my wife, Marie, who is here with me tonight, who was at all times encouraged, supported, and stood by me, especially in the very difficult early years when Entercom was nothing but a fledgling FM broadcast company striving to survive in an industry dominated by AMs. Thank you very much, Marie. This evening has been made more joyful to me by the presence of my daughter, Nancy, who has journeyed here from Atlanta, and by my very good friends of longstanding, Howard and Barbara Galper. And so my many thanks for them for being here tonight. As John Donne once said, no man is an island entire of itself. And therefore, I must thank all of the people with whom I have worked in Entercom over the years, who have been, and also those who were involved in providing financial support and assistance in the very early years. And I could not, in good conscience, accept this award without thanking Entercom's Chief Operating Officer, Chicago's own Wheezy Kramer, for all she has done to make Entercom the company that it is today, and thereby helping me to be here tonight. Thank you, Wheezy. But what thrills me the most of all is that I am standing here together with my beloved son, David, of whom I am most proud, and realizing that our close working relationship at Entercom over many years to this day has made it possible for me to receive this great tribute and introduction into the National Radio Hall of Fame. Thank you all for this very special honor.
Congratulations, Joe. So when the National Radio Hall of Fame called to tell me a few years ago that I was being inducted, I realized that we already had a speaking engagement set with about 4,000 people in Oklahoma City that I was scheduled to be, so I could not be here that night. And so some of my team came up, and my daughter Rachel, who is a speaker and a New York Times bestselling author, was able to accept that award or that induction on my behalf that night. So working with family, if you don't kill each other, you get to have a moment like those two just had up here. And if you didn't see the, and what you guys couldn't see from back there that I could see were the tears of pride in David's eyes for his dad. And that's pretty special, guys. That's pretty cool. We just got to witness that. Very well done, guys. Congratulations. So our third inductee is John Records Landecker. Woo! And according to my notes, that means that he's commonly known as John Records Landecker because his mother's maiden name was Records. Is that right? Yeah, okay. That's what it says here. I'm just going by this. So obviously he's famous for his legendary work, iconic work right here in Chicago's top 40 station WLS, known for his quick wit, his high energy, and his rapid-fire style, without a doubt. And here to induct John into the National Radio Hall of Fame is one of his co-workers and close friends, Bob Surratt. Bob has had a distinguished media career in both television and radio, and he currently hosts Surratt and, I can't even say it, guys, right here on WLS. Sorry I butchered that, Bob, but welcome to the stage, Bob Surratt, please.
John Landecker's shows have always been the smartest, most creative, high-energy performances on the radio. He's constantly challenging the listener to keep up, which is why everyone kept coming back for more. And guess what? He's just as entertaining and interesting off the air as he is on the air. That's the blurb that I wrote for John and Rick Kempfert that they graciously included on the back cover of their book, the New York Times bestseller, Records Truly Is My Middle Name. That's a lie about it being a New York Times bestseller, but everything else I said is absolutely true. For the better part of the decade of the 70s, every weekday at about 5:55 p.m. on the Big 89, the Rock of Chicago, Music Radio WLS, I had the good fortune to say, John Records Landecker is next. But most afternoons, by the time my show started at 2 in the afternoon, I'd see John coming into the station already. If James Brown was the hardest working man in show business, John was the hardest working man in radio. He'd get busy early in the day writing that evening's always clever opening comments, delivered very quickly, almost unintelligible unless you were really paying attention. John always liked to run the music hot. He'd be in early preparing features like Americana Panorama, clever play on words using a hit song title. Maybe he'd be producing a comic radio version of a movie like Star Wars, which he did with our great production engineer, Allie Rosen. Or one of his clever parody songs like Make a Date with the Watergate, featuring John as President Richard Nixon, and practically everyone else at the station reading the parts John wrote in his hilarious and biting commentary on the news of the day. You know, I was thinking about how now we turn to the late night TV hosts for their witty take on what's going on in the world. And it dawned on me that John was doing his own version of The Daily Show between hit songs before any of those guys came along. And, of course, nighttime across Chicago, across Middle America and beyond that, meant you could hear or try to participate, if you dared, in what I guess was the original form of random social media posts and tweets, only it was heard and not seen, the world-famous boogie check. John and I both shared great love and respect for a WCFL jock who I grew up with and who predated John on Chicago radio at night. His name was Ron Britton. Ron's show was a constant wall of sounds that he'd react to, and it was a nonstop theater of the mind performance. Well, John's 6 to 10 show had that element and more. He definitely made you think. You had to work a little to keep up with the program. John was sort of the thinking man's Ron Britton. And also very important to John was the playlist. FM was starting to come into its own back then, and John knew to compete and maintain his #1 ratings, he needed the right mix of mayhem and music. So let me tell you about the WLS jock meetings. The highlight would usually be, first you'd have Lou Jack staring up at the ceiling with a rolled up newspaper like that during the entire meeting. And then Landecker would be complaining about the bubblegum music he had to play at night and the album cuts that he couldn't play. And that would usually be followed by Fred Winston, who would stand up, turn to program director John Guerin and say, "I think everyone should be fired, John. This would be a good time to just clean house and start fresh." And poor John Guerin tried to control that group. Before you watch the video and see the fastest mind in radio at work, I just wanted to say that I'm very happy I was asked to be here tonight. This guy has always been a Hall of Famer. Take a look.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a boogie check. This is John Records Landecker.
John Records Landecker. You will never be a greatest jockey. You have lousy voice, lousy personality, and this will not change. Okay? So on the air is not for you. But you come on time, and you're a good worker. How about I make you program director? The truth, oldies channel.
John Landecker, your reporter. And this on the WLS Music Radio Rewind is Can I Get a Witness News? Now, the reason we call it Can I Get a Witness News is because, quite frankly, we cannot get a witness to prove that these stories is true. Page 1. Good evening, Boogie Check.
Good evening, John Records Landecker.
I am.
I am talking to you.
You are.
And the topic is you, your name.
Mav, wonderful topic.
So did Mom or Dad name you Records, and why did they name you Records?
You know, somebody mentioned this earlier today that people still didn't believe it. Here's the deal, and this probably won't be for the last time. It was my mother's maiden name. Her name is Marjorie Victoria Records. And when I was born, that was put on my birth certificate as my middle name. And that's the story, and I'm sticking to it.
Here at the old WLS radio station, which I am leaving after 9.5 beautiful years. Well, it just seemed like it was time to make an exit. So I've made arrangements to go to Toronto. I'm going to be living with Margaret Trudeau. And the Stones are coming over consistently, and we're going to be mounting a few Canadians. They may not be police, but they will be so close to me that I probably won't care, you know?
The boys be back in town again. That, of course, Thin Lizzy, I am John Landecker. 7 minutes after 9. This is WLS Music Radio and the Big 89 Rewind.
John Records Landecker and Bob Surratt. And Saturday afternoon from the Windy City. Hey, how are you? Nice to have you aboard here as we celebrate 25 years. Some people want to be lawyers, some want to be accountants. I decided I wanted to be on the radio. What do? You walk into a radio station, you say, hi, I'd like to be on the radio. Isn't that incredible?
WLS Music Radio, the Big 89 Rewind on WLS, and I am John Records Landecker. And now, something special for this year's Big 89 Rewind. Ladies and gentlemen, it sucked then, and it sucks now.
Time has come to make a choice.
Please welcome to the National Radio Hall of Fame, class of 2017.
Siri, what's the name of the next inductee?
John Records Landecker.
You sure you got that last part right?
I have no idea.
I guess we'll find out now.
John Records Landecker.
It's actually pretty close.
Either way, he is in the Radio Hall of Fame now.
That's true.
Congratulations, John.
Ladies and gentlemen, John Records Landecker is next.
There he is.
I didn't know you got something. I should have started at the beginning of that video so I could have gotten up here in time. Hold on. I can assure you it's not going to be worth it. They said that one of my strong points was my spontaneity, and I've had weeks to think about this. So strap yourself in. Good evening, my fellow broadcasters and radio geeks. Look, show prep. Thank you, Bob. Bob Surratt and I have been friends and co-workers since the early 1970s, but actually it's way more than that. Bob has never failed to call on me if he thinks there's a position that I can fill, from being a movie critic with him on Channel 11, Chicago Tonight, to being a fill-in co-host on WLS Radio. I'm going to do the thank yous. You only get one shot at this, and I'm going to take all the time I need. Thank yous to my family, my parents Marjorie and Werner, my brother Tom, who flew in from Washington State, my sister-in-law Sharon, my nephew Will, his wife Caitlin, and their unborn child, who still has about a month left in Caitlin's womb. My daughters, Tracy and Amy. Amy flew in from Los Angeles along with Bradley Whitford. Also Bradley's daughter Frances, who allowed her father to drag her here tonight. Who is this guy, Dad? Was he on Spotify? I think we should consult tonight's program. Neely White,
Amy's a longtime friend who I've known almost as long as I've known Amy. My wife, Nika. My stepson, David Garrity, who's here with his wife, Sarah, and her mother, Paulette Zelinsky. My other stepkids, Siobhan and Max Garrity. Siobhan and her fiance, Nick Ginther, are not here tonight because they left for Florida a couple of days ago. And who can blame them? My granddaughters, Iris Lynch and Gatsby Garrity, and you know, while I'm at it, I'd like to thank my dogs. Zeke, Stella, Emma, Zubadash Duba, Gypsy, Gus, Colt, and my stepdog Quincy. In the radio timeline, Lucy Dobson, Ted Heisel, Tom O'Brien, and Art Volo. I have known Art since high school. And I had a whole thing ready to do about Art until Art, as Art only does, came up to me when I was sitting at the table, told me a couple of things, and I think they're indicative of so much about who he is and how he is radio's best friend. This address is 360 North State. WLS Radio was 360 North Michigan. The last three numbers of my zip code are 360. Now, who puts that kind of stuff together? Also, and this is, I think, even more important, November 2nd is the anniversary of radio. Today, 1920, radio went on the air for the first time. So today, radio is 97 years old. And who else would know that but Art? Also, Jim Donahue, Dave Albury, Mike Rivers, Paul Drew, Mike McCormick, John Guerin, Marty Greenberg, Saul Foose, Bill Gable, Jan Jeffries, Kevin Robinson, Rick Kempfer and his wife Bridget, Dave Stern, Vince Argento, Elliot Ephraim, Kipper McGee, Mary June Rose, Brant and Lissa Miller, John Quick, plus Mike Dempsey and Ralph Fine, who made the journey all the way from Michigan City, Indiana, to be here tonight. Of course, I'd like to say thank you to the National Radio Hall of Fame, who have reignited my inner radio geek. By the way, if you are sitting next to someone who knows me, stand by for a massive eye roll. My grandfather, William J. Records, introduced me to the Lone Ranger on television in the mid-50s. When I later discovered that the Lone Ranger originated as a radio program in 1933, I began a decades-long fascination that continues to this day. I came to the conclusion that one of the program's main creators has been dumped to the wayside while others continue to profit from his creation. When I found out I was going to go into the National Radio Hall of Fame, I thought I'd check out who else is in here. My jaw dropped when I saw the name Fran Stryker, who, in my opinion, created the Lone Ranger, the Silver Bullets, the Mask, Butch Cavendish, all of it from the mind and the values of Fran Stryker. Never before in the pages of history can one find a greater champion of justice. Well, I have been through the pages of history, and if anybody deserves a champion of justice, it's Fran Stryker. In a move motivated entirely by power and greed, George W. Trendle, the station owner, bullied Stryker into signing a contract that said everything and anything Stryker ever created from that time till the end of time belonged to Trendle. Stryker didn't have an agent. He didn't have leverage. It was a depression, and it was a job. Now, I doubt if any of them had any idea of the influence and longevity the Lone Ranger would have, influence in the sense that it allowed the United States, especially the youth of this country, to regain something that had been crushed by the Depression: hope. Here was a champion of justice. Here was someone who had your back. Here was something you could believe in again. Recently, 60 Minutes did a piece on Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, who were convicted of spying on the United States in what was termed the crime of the century. The Rosenbergs had two sons, Robert and Michael. In the 60-minute piece, Michael was asked what it was like when the authorities came to take his parents away. Now, I'm paraphrasing here, but it was something like, I heard a knock on the door, I was listening to the Lone Ranger. So without saying so, Michael revealed that the lessons of American democracy via the Lone Ranger and Fran Stryker were broadcast into the home of Russian spies behind their back. The Ranger was a money machine for Trendle. Comic books, novels, movie serials, and the TV series with Clayton Moore and Jay Silverheels. If you look at the early episodes of that TV show, the credits say it's a play written by based on a play written by Fran Stryker. Oh, that's so nice. Trendle sold the TV rights to the Lone Ranger for millions of dollars. In fact, at the time, it was the most money ever paid for television rights. He gave Stryker a bonus, $4,000. In the 2013 Lone Ranger movie with Arnie Hammer and Johnny Depp, there is no mention of Fran Stryker in the credits, yet they used his entire story. I did a Lone Ranger search on Dish Network. I told you I'm a radio geek, right? In the week of October 7th to the 14th, 2017, 137 episodes of The Lone Ranger would play on 4 different networks. 1933 to 2017, I believe that is 84 years. We should all live so long. When it comes to awards, you know, how many times have you heard the expression, it's an honor just to be nominated? It's cliche, right? Well, not really. I found out I was going to be nominated when I read an email while I was on an elliptical machine at Planet Fitness. My initial reaction was like a rush, a thrill, if you will. I gasped. A few weeks later, I was buying a chainsaw at Cableman's Hardware in Michigan City, Indiana, when I got the email saying I was in. This time I played it cool. No gasping. However, I did regard it as a sign that I should buy the more expensive chainsaw. When my wife, Nika, first heard the news that I was to be inducted, she shed some tears. When my daughter Amy found out, she got a little weepy. Now, it would have been nice if my parents were around to witness this. When I was a Boy Scout, I know, hard to believe, my mother, Marjorie Victoria Records, drove me all over Ann Arbor, Michigan, selling Christmas trees door to door to save up enough money to buy my first radio, a 6-transistor made by Channel Master, $36. I have a great memory of being at the dinner table that evening while my father listened to the news of the day on my radio. Finally, I would like to thank those broadcast professionals who deemed me worthy of this great honor. I'd also like to thank everybody who listened to me, everybody who worked with me, and everybody who married me. Thank you.
Don't forget the award. Inductees enter the National Radio Hall of Fame in a variety of ways. Here to tell us how the voting for tonight's event was conducted is another National Radio Hall of Fame inductee himself, and tonight's announcer, Jim Bohannon.
Thank you, Dave. Just so you know, inductees to the National Radio Hall of Fame earn this honor through a process of both nomination and voting. The Radio Hall of Fame's nominating committee is a 24-person organization that convenes several times a year to bring forth their own suggestions and review those submitted by both the radio industry and radio listeners nationwide. After much deliberation, 24 individuals and/or programs are nominated and placed for vote before the radio industry and radio listeners. 4 inductees are chosen through a confidential voting process conducted by Votem.com and overseen by the accounting firm Miller Kaplan Arrace. Those confidential results are later revealed to the industry along with the outcome of a radio listener vote for 2 more categories, one in music format and one in the talk format. This year, some 900 radio industry members were invited to cast their confidential vote. The Radio Hall of Fame received 299,338 votes from radio listeners, yielding the results for 2 categories. The nominating committee also voted to induct 2 more inductees, recognizing their impact on the radio industry. As a result, there are 8 inductees this year in the class of 2017. Thanks again to the Mix Group for sponsoring tonight's event and live broadcast on the TuneIn app. And in the audience tonight, we have with us one of our sponsors, Ginny Lederer with The Creative. Also, thanks to additional sponsors, Skyview Networks. Yes, please. Let's show our appreciation, shall we? Ginny Lederer with The Creative. And also thanks to additional sponsors, Skyview Networks, led by Ken Teal. Give it up. Give it up. Thank you. They are here tonight with their team members, and we welcome them as well. Right now, we have a special video produced by our sponsor, the Mix Group, featuring our host, the notorious Dave Ramsey.
All right, let's watch the video.
Thanks, Dave. You know, having Dave here to host this year's National Radio Hall of Fame induction ceremony got me thinking about our company and the role that the Mix Group's custom imaging production and voiceover services play in the lives of both our stations and the listening audience every day. Dave teaches us to not only do well for ourselves, but to give back as much as we can. This year, through donations, manpower, and time, we participated by helping our stations spring into action during times of need and give back to the communities when they need it most. So tonight, we're gonna take it back to the old school, get you into the groove with my boy Dave Ramsey's knowledge of both money and problems. It's more money, more problems. The Notorious B.I.G. ain't got nothing on my boy Dave Ramsey.
D.V. Ramsey. No info for the D.A. Federal agents, man. Cause I'm laying a stupid cell and a phone base in. My team, Supreme State Clean, Triple Financial Dream. I be that cat you see at all events spent. Gas and holster girls on shoulders. Playboy, I told ya, being mine to me. Use too much, lose too much. Step on stage, girls boo too much. I guess because you run with ladies too much. Me lose my touch, never that. If I did, ain't no problem. Who get them get where the true players at? Throw your rollies, I'd wave side and keep their hands high while give your girl the I player. Please, financially, people see. Beam IGB lost in mix on the cover. Fortune 5. Oh, here's my phone number. Your name, I've got to know. I got to go. Got to flow down. There's that platinum blush like there's that dangerous on track. Leave your back. That's just cray cray.
I had nothing to do with that. What happens when there's too much video out there on you. That's what that amounts to. Wow. Our 4th inductee, the late Bob Sievers. Our next inductee was on the air for 51 years, and get this, on the same radio station, WOWO, Fort Wayne, Indiana, for 51 years. He kept the same shift for 51 years. The late Bob Sievers was a legend, showing up to work every day wearing a jacket and a tie. Bob was old school professionalism, pride in his work. And here to induct the late Robert S. Bob Sievers into the National Radio Hall of Fame is St. Louis radio talk show host and program director for WOW, Ryan Recker. So please welcome to the stage, Ryan Recker.
I just heard a story at the table. I had this whole speech planned out, but I wanted to share a story with Bob Sievers' granddaughter, Jennifer, who just shared this. She was from Fort Wayne, and she was traveling, went to go see the band Aerosmith in Phoenix, paid extra, got to do the meet and greet, went backstage and talked to Steven Tyler. And during that encounter said, I'm from Fort Wayne, Indiana. And he said, that's great. When I grew up in Boston, I used to climb a tree with my little radio and listen to Whoa Whoa. And that's how I got my influence to who I am today. And she said, you won't believe this. My grandfather is Bob Sievers. Bob Sievers was there for 50 years. Steven Tyler said, I used to listen to Bob. He's a big influence on me. If it wasn't for him, Aerosmith wouldn't be. So she was excited. She was thrilled. She goes back. She immediately calls her granddad and says, you're not going to believe this. I just talked to Steven Tyler. He said that you're a big influence. If it wasn't for you, there would be no Aerosmith. And Bob says, oh, that is wonderful. Who's Aerosmith? And then he said, I want you to talk to Grandma. She handed the phone over, and that was it. That was Bob Sievers. And for 50-some years, he always would say, hello, friends, Bob Sievers. And that's how he would wake people up. And there were so many different people that knew him personally because of that. He welcomed them in as friends. And Bob, to his credit, through those 51 years, never missed a day on the radio, besides when he served in World War II. He went to go serve, and he came back and never missed a day. Programmers and consultants, from what I understand, would always question him about his style. You heard it from Bill Handel, and it's very true. When you go out and you talk one-on-one, that wasn't always the normal. They said, you're broadcasting, you're supposed to talk to a lot of people. He said, I'm only talking to one, I'm talking to this community, and he got it. And I think that might be part of the secret of radio today, because that was his style. It was him. It was just himself. It was someone that was unique. Bob was the kind of guy who kept his phone number in the phone book in case someone wanted to reach him. He answered the phone and would talk to people, and I remember hearing stories about how they would be at dinner and he would say, they need me, I just need to talk to them, and he was just that kind of guy. He was the kind of guy that would do lost dog announcements, and the program directors would hate him for doing it, but he understood. He said, sometimes when it comes to these little dogs, that's all they have. And it's like losing a family member. So I know what that means, and he wanted to help him out. And even when they told him to stop, he kept doing it. He was the kind of guy that would go out and speak to groups because they would always welcome him in, and they always wanted to hear his stories, and he had so many of them. There's so many different accomplishments to Bob Sievers. You may not have heard him, but you're about to see him in a minute. Bob approached life genuinely and humbly, which is refreshing, and he walked into the station every day with a sack of burgers that smelled like onions, and all the people complained about it, but then he would give them some, and I guess he would be fine after that. But he treated a day as every day on the radio as a new day to try to help someone else. He was always trying to help other people. And just like you, probably just like you may have heard him, you may have listened to him, but you may never had a chance to meet him in real life. A couple of other stories I wanted to share, and I think this is a great one too. When he was just a teenager, he was in high school, he did the paper route. He wanted to be on Whoa Whoa Radio, he knew it. And we're talking 1932, so this is when radio was still brand new. And every day he would knock on that radio station's door and he would say, I want to work for your radio station. They always said no, and the cycle would continue until one day he went to his pastor and he said, I know this is my calling. And he said, you know what? Get down on your knees, we're going to go to the altar and we're going to pray about this. Next day, he got the phone call, 1936, worked 51 years with the same radio station after that. He said it was an answered prayer, and his career was an answered prayer. I came in to radio listening to some really great people, some amazing personalities, and what I recognize in Bob Sievers is he came in with the love in his heart every single day, and maybe that's the type of message we need to try to convey more often, that love in the heart and love of radio. It's a great honor to introduce Bob Sievers into the National Hall of Fame, and you'll get a chance to see a little bit more of him here.
Bob Sievers. In the morning. Bob Sievers. In the morning. Good morning.
That's the news and weather at 5. Bob Sievers reporting.
Bob Sievers and the Good Morning Team.
Before the days of television, and as a matter of fact, before the days when some of us were born, Bob Sievers began his broadcasting career on Whoa Whoa Radio here in Fort Wayne.
Recognize this voice? It belongs to a man who's become an institution in this area. He has the longest running radio show in Fort Wayne and one of the largest listening audiences in the country. In fact, at times he's heard as far away as South Africa. Who is it? Bob Sievers.
She said, better you should think of your face and cut your sermon. I think that's pretty good. Thanks a lot for laughing that way over there.
Bob started in radio in 1936 when he was only 13. He signed on for WOWO, which at that time was located in the Gospel Temple on Rudisill. Except for serving in the Navy during World War II, Bob has never missed a day of work in the 43 years he's been in broadcasting.
I think the biggest thrill in all of my broadcasting in the days before TV, the night I was 21, I was announcing Tommy Dorsey at the Colonial Hotel and Terrace Gardens at Rochester at Lake Manitou, Indiana. And in the middle of the show, Tommy Dorsey said, our announcer, Bob Sievers, is 21 years old tonight. And in the middle of this network feed, they stopped and played and sang Happy Birthday to me. Any radio station is only as good as the person who is on the air at that time and feels his responsibility. To me, it isn't work. If I were a millionaire, I'd do exactly what I'm doing now for nothing.
51 years of service to Fort Wayne, Indiana on WOWO Radio. And now, a member of the National Radio Hall of Fame, Bob Sievers.
And it's my honor to welcome up Bob Sievers' daughter, Carolyn.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for everything you've done to contribute to this evening. My father was blessed with the gift of voice, and in case you couldn't tell from the videos, I'm pronouncing that word voice in upper caps, boldface, and size 30 font. And his voice was unmistakable, readily identifiable, and it always resonated with goodwill, enthusiasm, and vitality and optimism. I think, though, what's more responsible for the love and regard that his fans have had for him for 60 plus years, many of them still remember him, was that they all felt they knew him personally. They saw him as their neighbor, as their friend, even their confidant. And he allowed them to see his vulnerability. He was a little bit self-effacing, and they appreciated that, and endeared him to them. They were able to readily discern his love and pride in family, home, and community. And they also appreciated and applauded his love and concern for his fellow individuals. And I have to say that's both of the human variety and also the canine, feline, avian, and other species variety too. And they knew that he always strove to give his very best to his public. So, Daddy, thank you. We do remember, we honor you, and we're all so proud of you. Thank you.
Our fifth inductee of the evening has been waking up Minneapolis with that deep, gravelly voice, that signature, iconic voice for years. Tom Barnard is the longtime morning drive host for KQRS, and our next inductee. He's known for being open, authentic, and transparent. He's real. That's what it amounts to. And those of us that turn on a microphone and do it well, we know how to be real on the air. Ushering Tom into the hall tonight is the current operations manager and VP of Cumulus's Classic Rock, Scott Jameson. Welcome to the stage, Scott. Pleasure, brother.
KQRS is a legendary radio station, and the reason it is, a big part of it, is the man we're going to honor tonight, Tom Barnard. For over 3 decades, Tom has anchored mornings on KQRS. His longevity and success is unparalleled. Extraordinary ratings fueled by honesty, transparency, and originality. You may not agree with everything he says, and a lot of people don't, but his no BS swagger, straight from the hip, tell it like it is what generations of fans in the Twin Cities have come to admire for 32 years in Morning Drive. Tom's deep appreciation and respect of law enforcement, firefighters, first responders, and military veterans is widely known. His support of family, hardworking Americans has given him an intensely loyal fan base. It still continues today. However, the success did not come overnight. And it didn't come without challenging beginnings. Tom was raised in North Minneapolis. It was a diverse yet impoverished community. He was one of 6 kids raised by his mother. His dad was institutionalized when he was 10. At 11, Tom became a janitor to help make ends meet for his mom. Tom will tell you about this, I'm sure, but he adored and respected his mother, lovingly referred to as Toots. She played a pivotal and influential role in his life, working hours on end as a diner waitress to make ends meet, no doubt inspiring Tom's tireless work ethic he still maintains today. Tom never made it to his high school graduation, but that doesn't mean he didn't get an education in life few of us have. He had to grow up fast, much faster than many of his peers. One of the first times I met Tom, I'm sorry, this is great. One of the first times we met, in the course of the conversation, we're talking about our radio careers. What did you do? Where did you work? How, all that kind of stuff, getting to know him. And at the conversation, it came to a point where I said, did you ever go to college? I went to college. Did you go to college? He goes, yeah, I went for 1 day. I said, 1 day, what happened? He goes, on the second day, I couldn't find a parking spot. I didn't go back. So that's Tom. In the 1980s and 90s, Tom was an elite national voiceover talent, flying from Minneapolis to New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles to cut commercials long before the internet and ISDN lines. His clients included, some you may know, United Airlines, Procter & Gamble, Home Depot, Sears, and McDonald's. Tom's voiceover career reached a pinnacle in the mid-'80s as the primary voice of the 1984 Summer Olympic Games in Los Angeles. When he shared that great news with Toots about his Olympics gig, she sighed and said, "Don't die like Elvis." As Tom's morning show on KQ continued to dominate into the year 2000 and beyond, he became an early adopter of on-demand audio, beginning a daily podcast in 2011 that he hosted along with his family, or as Tom puts it, I tricked him into being on the air with me so I could spend more time with him. That's the kind of guy Tom is. Tom's podcast, now in its 6th year, has been a creative outlet and business success, generating annual revenues over $500,000 and recently added to the Westwood One podcast network. And most proudly, Tom is of his show signed its first 2 terrestrial affiliates in the state of Minnesota. When most guys his age are winding down, playing more golf, Tom remains intensely competitive, always looking for new ways to grow his brand. However, with all of his successes, his 40-plus years in broadcasting, nothing compares to the love he has for his family, all who are here tonight to witness this great event. And I'm very proud and honored on behalf of Cumulus and all of us here tonight to welcome Tom Bernard into the National Radio Hall of Fame.
And now,
feedback.
a voiceover artist introducing a voiceover artist who happens to be a National Radio Hall of Fame qualifying morning show personality. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Tom Bernard.
Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Yeah, oh, good for you.
92 KQRS, Minnesota's classic rock. 6:42 now. It's 18 minutes until 7 o'clock. A writer on laughhacker.com just released a diagram of the ideal way to eat a crunchy taco. Get away from me. Tell me how to eat a taco. There are a ton of these people who couldn't make it as a lawyer, so they become politicians, and then it's, I'm just going to do whatever you want me to do, so you'll vote for me. Scumbags. I said scumbags. You hear me? See, this is the problem, and we've talked about this how many times in this show, everybody? The fact that people in local television, local radio, national television, it's radio and television. Shut up. It's like, honestly, God, calm down. You're in radio.
Shut up.
Right? I mean, it's not, you're not Marlon Brando, you're not Katharine Hepburn. They said, we're going to nominate you for the National Radio Hall of Fame. The only reason I agreed to do it is because I thought I'd never get in. I'm not really a Hall of Fame kind of guy.
This is Tom Bernard, the Twin Cities' #1 morning drive radio DJ. And he didn't get to the top patting his buddies on the head. Tom's trademark is his brash, sarcastic, often arrogant, tell-it-like-it-is style.
I will not hurt someone's feelings purposely. I won't do that.
Did you used to do that?
Oh, I think so, but I didn't do it on purpose. I just was trying to find out where that boundary was.
So how did you get into broadcasting?
I went to a school, Brown Institute, on what was then called the WIP program, Work Incentive Program, Hennepin County. It was for underprivileged children. I was tossed from that school 7 different times. I have a history of that also, by the way. The fact that I went to Brown 7 times, and I worked for Mr. Hubbard 5 different times.
So what's the future hold for you?
Hopefully, I'll always do voiceover. And I also realized that one day people will say, well, gee, Tom, that was a lot of fun listening to you on the radio, but we're doing something else now, or we're at another point in our life now, or we're doing this now. And when I get to that point, then I just say, that was great, thanks a lot.
They told me that would happen. I didn't believe them, but it did.
I'm here to present to you.
Please welcome to the National Radio Hall of Fame Class of 2017, Tom Bernard.
He's a radio guy.
Please welcome Tom Bernard into the National Radio Hall of Fame.
Hey, what a crowd, huh? For all of you who don't know me, I look like a real asshole after that, don't I? I mean, think about that. But he's right. Radio's been magnificent. This is all about the listeners. I know it's all about the listeners, and I love that. But my family, my friends are all here, by the way, about 50 people. Although Lindell and Sprinthal, I put them at the back of the room, so, you know, it all works out. I don't really, I mean, I can go through my history. I got into radio in 1970, got fired, and got fired. And then I got into voiceover in 77, and that went well. In 86, my wife called me. We're living at 20th Street and 2nd Avenue in New York, and she said, we're going to have a baby. I said, well, you know, probably can't raise a baby and do voiceover. You just can't do it. So we moved back to Minneapolis. Actually, when I put the phone down, Dave Hamilton, the program director at KQRS, called me and said, do you want to get back into radio? I said, it's been a lot of years. He said, well, just come back and do the morning show for about 6 months. So thank you to Dave Hamilton. Anybody know him? Seriously. Amazing program director. So I came back, and God bless the listeners, because it's been 32 years, and it continues to work really, really well because of all the wonderful people I work with sitting at this table right here with my family. Well, except for Mike McVeigh. Not that wild about him, but no, that's not. Mike's been wonderful, everybody. Doug Hammond sitting at the front here. Whenever I do speeches in public, he always sits in that position because he looks at me and goes, don't do it. Thank you, Doug. I appreciate it. And Shelley and Eric, my family. About 37 years ago, I met the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my entire life, and I don't know what the hell's wrong with her, but she married me. We have 2 magnificent children, and our daughter got married, and we have a 17-year-old granddaughter. She's magnificent, and I'm very, very proud to say that it's about to happen again. We're going to have a baby in about 6 months. I care deeply about my family and my friends. I have a bunch of friends scattered all over the place. I love you so much. You're unbelievable to me. You all keep me on the straight and narrow. by threatening me, which is a good thing, I think. But yeah, it's all about, for me, it's all about working with great people, and everybody on the show is wonderful. My friends are wonderful. My family is magnificent. And I just, that's all I can say. It's such an honor to be here. And I thank each and every one of you. God, I sound pretty positive compared to the video thing, don't I? I mean, I was watching it going, that's the best you could do. That's the one, that's the clip you picked, right? I mean, is that not right? I was like, Jesus. But in any case, I'm done. Maybe career-wise, I don't know. It's a possibility. No, I think I will be around till I probably drop dead. I love it so much, and I love the business we're all in. God, I love a lot of things. But I really do, and thank you for your kindness, and thank you for including me in this club with some great, great people today. God bless. I'm not even religious. Let me say this. God bless all of you.
Congratulations, brother. Proud of you.
Just when Dave Ramsey thought he had this gig down pat, we thought we'd throw him a little curve, so you can just stand there, Dave. Dave Ramsey, well, most of us in this industry, let's face it, can talk the talk. Most of us really can't walk the walk too well because we haven't had to. Dave Ramsey talks the talk so well because he once walked the walk of getting into debt, deep doo-doo. And he learned the lessons from that, a lot of lessons. He began sharing those lessons with some people in his church, and then on the radio, one radio station. And that grew, and today, of course, Dave Ramsey is on nearly 600 radio stations and has over 600 employees. Well, we thought tonight would be a good night to tell you a little bit more about Dave Ramsey, the man. He was inducted in 2015, but he couldn't be here because he had made a commitment. And he kept that commitment to radio listeners in Oklahoma City because that's the kind of guy Dave Ramsey is. Now, his daughter Rachel filled in admirably here, but we thought tonight he should have the chance to feel our love firsthand. And by that I mean Dave Ramsey, Radio Hall of Fame inductee. We're happy to welcome to the stage once again Mr. Craig Kitchen, the national chairman of the Radio Hall of Fame. Because you deserve this, Dave.
You never were here in 2015, but Rachel did an excellent job accepting the award on your behalf.
Probably better than I would have done.
There's one thing Rachel could not do, and she may have outshined you that night. She was good. She cannot forge your signature. So would you do us the honor of at least providing your signature so this can hang in the wall at the National Radio Hall of Fame when we reopen in a year? Welcome here to the National Radio Hall of Fame.
Thank you, brother. Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Wow. All right. See, that wasn't in my notes, so y'all messed me up here. So when I got into business 25 years ago, syndication on the talk radio side was just taking off. And ever since I got in the business, I've heard people worrying that syndication, nationally syndicated programs like mine or Jim's or some of the others are squeezing out some of the local parts, and there's no place for, quote, the farm team to come up. And they just, where's the young talent going to come from? How are they going to land? How are they going to have a place to break in if everything's squeezed out, if all the inventory is taken, all the avails, the day parts are squeezed out? And so it's a legitimate worry. But you know what's interesting to me is, and I've seen this in several spaces, radio is one of them, I've seen it in publishing space, I've seen it in some other spaces where disruptions have occurred, where things have changed the industry and the way we look at things are different. What's interesting is, if somebody's just freaking good at what they do, they find a way. can't hold them back. And I'm driving to work one morning in Nashville where I live, and if you don't know, in Nashville, if you have a pickup, it's federal law that you listen to country music. And I actually grew up in Nashville, and I used to listen to rock, but later on I got a pickup, so I started listening to country music. And so I flipped over to a sister station. I'm on an iHeart station there in Nashville on WLAC, and I flipped over to the sister station, Big 98, which is a monster FMer there, big ratings and all this. And I hear this guy on the radio, and I'm like, did I get the right station? Is this a country station? I start listening to him for a few minutes, and man, I was hooked. Oh, I told my wife, I said, have you heard this new guy on the morning drive, Bobby Bones? And she goes, oh yeah, I listen to him all the time. All my friends at the Y, I listen to him. So you got like the 52-year-old woman at the Y demographic locked in, you know? And I'm like, what in the world? There's a phenomenon. And everywhere I went, I mentioned, have you guys heard this new talent? Have you heard this guy? And apparently I was the last one of the party, I guess. I guess everybody knew about Bobby Bones before I did. But I got to tell you, I got to go down and spend a little time with him and Lunchbox and Amy and their crew. And I've appeared as a guest on their show a few times, and we've gotten to be friends. But he's proof that talent really can't be denied an opportunity. And he's proven it. It's absolutely incredible. Very, very well done. Our final inductee tonight is Bobby Bones. He's to do the induction, the formal induction, is the head of iHeart's country division, my friend Rod Phillips. So Rob, come on up and do the induction for us.
Thank you, Dave. And thanks for doing such a great introduction that mine is now going to suck. We appreciate the comments, though. We really do. I am thrilled to be back in Chicago, Illinois, where I met my wife, working in radio here. Shout out to John Guerin in the room, who allowed me to program for 7 years and help launch KISS FM, and I'm so excited to be in Chicago tonight. Thank you, Bobby, for allowing me to be a part of it. It is quite the special night. Right behind a great city like Chicago, how about a shout out for Nashville, Tennessee tonight? Nashville represent! Nashville! Look at Lunch. Lunch is all quiet. He won't be in about an hour. We'll get him some drinks. This is what happens in country radio, and I didn't realize it till a few years ago, and now I'm blessed to be a part of it with the Bobby Bones Show and all that happens in Nashville. We literally have artists from Music Row here tonight with big hits on the radio. We have our label partners in the house tonight who bought tables and are representing here tonight. Friends from Nashville, obviously the show, iHeart members, and we are just as excited as we could be. I have to say that I met Bobby many years before the country thing was country. We were working together. I was very enamored by what he was doing on Top 40 radio, and we were syndicating his show out a little bit, which got up to about 15, 18 radio stations, which was pretty cool. And then there was the opportunity to bring it to Nashville. And we decided to do that as iHeartRadio and iHeartMedia, and that, of course, was a big deal. You would think that somebody would be excited about that. Somebody would be excited about coming to Nashville and ending up on 108 radio stations, which he is, by the way, thoroughly excited and is our representative. But it's never quite good enough for Bobby in a strange way. There's a quick story I'll tell you. Scott Shannon, obviously a legendary broadcaster, Scott Shannon pulled Bobby to the side at an event one night and said, hey, Bobby, I'll give you some advice. And it's really simple. Enjoy the ride. And it's something I've talked to Bobby about, and I love that Scott said it to him. I love that he said, you got to stop. It's going to go by very fast. A lot's coming at you. Please enjoy the ride. And I'm here tonight to tell you, Scott and others, we're still kind of working on that with him. But the reason we're working on it with Bobby is the very reason he's the youngest ever inductee into the Hall of Fame. So we move him to Nashville, and literally now is the largest syndicated morning show in country radio history. But again, that wasn't good enough. So Bobby came to me one day. I remember exactly when we talked about it. He's like, hey, I got a band. I'm going to start a band. I'm going to do some music. And I'm like, yeah, that's cute. That's cute. That's cool. And then they sold a lot of records, like real albums. And then the #1 comedy album. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. Then they went on tour and they sold out theaters coast to coast. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. Then he said, I'm going to write a book. So he wrote a book. I'm like, that's kind of cute too. That is, no offense to the earlier comment, but that was a New York best-selling book for 4 weeks in a row. So congratulations on that. That was pretty impressive to take a radio show and turn it into a book. Then he said, I'm going to go on tour and do a comedy act. That is not easy. That, like the Raging Idiots, became a sold-out tour across the country. That's the kind of stuff that Bobby Bones has taken advantage of. Jennifer Limegruber, who works with the Premier Group with Darren, Julie, and we've got Peter here tonight and Casey, a great, terrific group out of the Premier Radio Networks. Jennifer works with me pretty much daily on the Bobby Bones Show. That's the kind of show it is. She made a comment to me recently that she works with a lot of nationally syndicated, very successful shows. And she feels like she has conversations about impressing on them to take advantage, enjoy the moment, but to take what you have and go forward and do more and more and more. And with Bobby, she admits that she finds herself chasing him. We all chase him in the right way. As I look at the table here that represents Bobby, we've got a great crew. I'm here to tell you, as somebody who has a fantastic opportunity to help lead this group, to work with them every day. The folks that are part of the show, it's a special group. It's weird that somebody named Lunchbox can be part of a special group, but it's true. Bobby's tried and true co-host, Amy Brown, in the house tonight. You'll hear from her in a bit. Producer Eddie, who's been a part of the show ever since I moved to Nashville. Ray, special shout out, the technical producer. And for those of you really in radio, you understand he's the only reason it's really on the radio every day. Morgan back in Nashville, and Mike D and a bunch of other people involved in the show. So I asked for one word, kind of like a little small version of a radio bit on the show. I said, Lunch and Amy, you've known him the longest. Give me one word that represents Bobby. And Lunchbox, I was really afraid of the word that would come back from him. But he came back with the word driven, which I thought was fantastic and had to be a part of the speech. He is truly as driven of an individual as I've ever seen. Then I said, Amy, what's your word? And I got like 22 words on a text, like it was all over the place, right? But that's Amy, very real and authentic, like the show is real and authentic. And here's Amy with more words about the Bobby Bones Show.
The Bobby Bones Show is one good time that you can't afford to miss. It's the Bobby Bones Show. Let's go.
Hardworking, funny, and determined. Those are just some of the ways to describe Bobby Bones. Bobby Bones was born Bobby Estelle in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and grew up in the rural community of Mountain Pine.
I shared a room with my grandma for a bit. It's Mountain Pine. This is where I live, right here.
Bobby began to dream of a radio career around the age of 6. Bobby knew that he wanted to make people laugh and entertain them as a radio or TV star, and that's when the calls to the local radio station began. From the age of 10, Bobby was a regular on pop station 105.9 KLAZ, introducing songs as Bobby the Barbarian. At age 17, Bobby began his formal radio career at the campus station of Henderson State University. While still in college, Bobby returned to KLAZ as a station hand. But within a few days, he was given the opportunity to go on air.
They were like, hey, you have to go on the air. And it was 17. I didn't have a radio name. And they were like, your name is going to be Bobby Z or Bobby Bones. And I was like, man, both those names are terrible. And I guess I'll take Bones because it sounds like a pirate or something cool.
After a few other radio jobs, Bobby began hosting the Bobby Bones Show on Austin's 96.7 KISS FM. While in Austin, Bobby met 2 of his future co-hosts, and I met one of my best friends. In 2013, Clear Channel, now iHeartMedia, moved Bobby to Nashville and a country format while also syndicating his show with Premier Networks nationwide.
All the record labels are there. All the major stars live there just about. And we're going to be the biggest country show in the United States.
The Bobby Bones Show took off and became a country powerhouse and is now heard on over 100 stations by almost 7 million listeners monthly. Bobby's brand also exploded with the best-selling book, a stand-up comedy tour, and a touring comedy band, The Raging Idiots.
When I grow up, I can be whatever I want.
Bobby Bones is an original. Bobby Bones is the real deal. Bobby Bones
Stop that.
is a 2017 inductee into the National Radio Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Bobby. We love you.
Congratulations on being inducted into the National Radio Hall of Fame. You continue to press the boundaries of radio and keep it moving forward and keep it exciting, keep it fun.
Your talent shines through in everything you do.
Bobby, you're in the Hall of Fame. Like, what?
Your talent, humor, and drive continue to inspire all of us.
You've been responsible for helping so many brand new artists' careers get started.
You have taken the town by storm. We're so proud of you here at iHeartMedia. Congratulations.
Keep having fun and keep making the fans smile, man. Congratulations.
Nashville. Let's show Chicago how to party tonight. Bobby Bones, I am as proud as I can be of you. The youngest ever inductee into the National Radio Hall of Fame, Mr. Bobby Bones.
Wow. Welcome to Nashville, everyone. In true Nashville style, I was in the bathroom standing at the urinal a bit earlier, and Rodney Atkins came up and said, I got some new music in about a month. I was like, cool, I want to go get an award, thank you. I'll check that out on Curb Records real soon. I don't really know, I don't have anything written. People, you know, they ask a lot, like, you know, how do you get to where you are? And for me, it was always about just picking the best people. Like, I'm not the funniest. You know, I've never had the best voice. I've never been the guy that should be good at radio, because nothing about me screams, you're really good at radio. But what I have been great at is finding great people. And Amy's here. Amy, stand up, please. And Lunchbox is here. Lunchbox, stand up. Both of these guys have been with me for 12, 13, 14 years. Like, I met Amy when she was selling granite in Austin. And Lunchbox was a delivery driver at Jason's Deli. And, you know, everyone on my show, my company, iHeartMedia, has allowed me to find people who have never worked in radio and put them as a part of this human show that gets broadcast on radio. And so it's Amy, it's Lunchbox, it's Ray, who started as a producer, as an intern, is now a producer, and Eddie was a TV producer. These are all just good people that I felt like made me better. They filled holes, they filled my weaknesses, and they made me a better radio talent and performer. They made me stronger, and that's my talent. And I've been able to find great people to do this with. I have a great company that I work with. They let me fail. My company lets me fail. I got fined $1 million like 2 years ago, and I didn't get fired. And I probably would have fired me. And one time, Lunchbox robbed a store on the air and went to jail. And we didn't get fired. But we learned from all of those things, and he didn't really rob a store. They just said that in the news. He put pantyhose over his face and bought a pack of gum, but he still went to jail. And his one call wasn't to his mom or his dad, it was to me. And I had to call his mom and dad and tell them why he was in jail. And we were off the air for a while there, and again, it was the people that had surrounded me there as my co-hosts, as my bosses, that had faith that when I was getting fined or we were going to jail, and I've calmed down a lot since. Darren, I've calmed down a lot since. The timing of this is I'll say odd, but fantastic, mostly because my contract's coming up real soon. I just want to keep it real while I'm up here. I think that's why, and I know there are a lot of listeners that are listening to this right now that I owe everything to. I know they're sitting at home right now listening to me talk at the Radio Hall of Fame when they're going to listen to my show in 5 hours. And to all the listeners that are listening to this right now, like, I would not be up here without you either. So I know you're not in this room, but thank you so much for letting us come every single morning. And thank you for building a platform for us to give back, because that's really been the calling of our show, from as recent as what happened in Las Vegas to the hurricanes to St. Jude. Like, together, and I don't mean me and I don't mean that room, I mean all of it. The people that listen to the show together, in 4.5 years, we've literally done tens of millions of dollars. And without the listeners, and that's applause for the listeners, that's not for me. But without being able to be real and being able to fail, a quick story, I had an artist, and I would bring him on. I remember calling him once, and he was in the shower, and he's like, why are you calling me? And I said, because I think you're really good. He said, can I call you right back? I said, yeah, call me back. We're on the air. It's like 5 minutes later, he calls me back. He said, hey, I dried off. What's up? I said, hey, I want you to come up and play. And he goes, okay, I'll be up tomorrow. He came up and he played. And it was awesome. This is an awesome performance. He leaves. I said, call him back. He said, hey, come back and perform again. Comes back, crushes it. Listeners love this guy. Leaves, back, third time. Then Rod, my boss, said, hey, I got a call. That guy you're putting on, nobody knows who he is. You got to keep him off the air. And I said, he is so good. I don't want to keep him on. He said, okay. He said, I'm going to let you do you. He said, but nobody knows who this artist is. And although I agree with you, he's really good, I'm getting calls from other program directors that are upset. But he allowed me to keep bringing this artist on the air. And thank God that CMAs happened, because it was Chris Stapleton. And it's having someone have your back like that, from your co-hosts to your listeners, to your freaking bosses, man. All of that has allowed me to do what we do. And so for that, I'm super appreciative. And to everybody in the room that's made that happen, from Rod to Darren, to Julie Talbot at Premiere. I know Jen Limegruber's not here. All of the teams that make a percentage from me, thank you for coming. All the artists want to get their spins. I appreciate that. No, Nashville really is weird and awesome in many ways, and I'm very grateful. To be in the Hall of Fame, for me, it seems a bit premature, but I was told it happens to a lot of guys, so thank you. Thank you very much. Some of the tickets, and again, you guys came, some of the tickets were like $250. Some of the tickets were like $5,000. And I don't know what I have to do for you that paid $5,000, Don, but I just appreciate you guys being here and for recognizing this. And this is a we thing, not a me thing. One of my best friends and really smart guy said to me this year he was getting inducted into the Tennis Hall of Fame. His name is Andy Roddick. He's here tonight, but he got inducted this year into the Tennis Hall of Fame. And he said, man, 2017, they're letting everybody in the Hall of Fame. And I agreed with him. Thank you so much. Again, it's a we thing, and thank you for letting it be a we thing. Thank you all. Have a great night.
Well done, brother. Well done.
Woohoo!
So I don't know about you guys, but I think we had if we were watching tonight, we probably get a good grasp on that this business is okay. Business is full of people who are persistent, consistent, authentic, entrepreneurial. They understand art, and they understand business. And there was quite a parade of them up here tonight. It's an honor to be a part of something like this, to remind me that Dave Ramsey Show is in the midst of this kind of great, a lot of fun. Thank you to the National Radio Hall of Fame and to Jim Bohannon, our announcer. Speaking of greatness, thank you, my friend.
Thank you very
I'll
much,
be with you
Dave.
tonight. Thank you to Tune In for airing this evening event, and to our sponsor for the evening, the Mix Group, I think. Congratulations to all on tonight's inductees, and thanks to everyone here. You guys have a great night. God bless.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. A heartfelt thank you to all for being a part of this monumental event in radio history. Our deepest appreciation to the Mix Group, our sponsor for the 2017 National Radio Hall of Fame induction ceremony. The Museum of Broadcast Communications president and CEO is Bruce Dumont. The National Radio Hall of Fame chairman is Craig Kitchen. Event producer, Allison Peter. Induction ceremony producer, John Schultz. Video director and graphic designer, Fritz Goldman. Our scriptwriter and floor director is Tom Couch. Thanks again to the Mix Group for providing us with all kinds of support for this event. We do appreciate it, guys. I'm Jim Bohannon. Thank you for joining us tonight for the 2017 National Radio Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Good night from Studio 8H in Chicago.